Good evening. Today we are going to finish up looking at the last two I can statements for geometric sequences. I can determine the explicit formula for a geometric sequence. I can use the explicit formula to find missing data, and then we'll be completed with geometric sequences. The explicit formula for a geometric sequence is A sub n equals A sub 1 times r to the n minus 1 power. Do you remember that A sub 1 is your nth term, and that r is your common ratio, n is your position of the term, the number of that position, and the A sub 1 is your first term. To find the explicit formula, you must follow these steps. First, find A sub 1, your first term. Secondly, find R, your common ratio. Plug those two values into our explicit formula for geometric sequences, and then simplify if possible. Let's look at an example. Write the explicit formula for 2, -1, and 1/2. Now do notice that the signs are changing here. So if we have to take and find what r is, if we take the second term, -1, and divide by the term preceding it, 2, the term before it, we get -1/2. That is our r value. Our first term is 2, so that's A sub 1 equals 2. Okay. Now, all we need to do is plug these two values into our explicit formula. So do realize that when r is negative, that's what causes the signs to change between each successive term. Okay, there they found r. You have your explicit formula. We plug it in. A sub 1 is 2, r is -1/2, A sub n stays at A sub n, and n stays n. That's the explicit formula if you wanted to find any term in this particular geometric sequence. All you would do is plug in the position number. If you wanted to find the fifth term, plug 5 in for n. Finding the specified term, just like I was telling you about finding that fifth term, we're going to learn how to do it here. We must first find the explicit formula for the sequence, then plug the number of the desired term in for n, and then evaluate. So let's look at an example. Let's find the 10th term of the sequence described by A sub n equals 3 times -5 to the n minus 1 power. Here they put r, which is -5, in parentheses. A lot of times they'll do that, especially when it's negative. That way you don't think that's 3 minus 5. That's 3 times -5. So now let's look at what we got. Okay, n is going to be 10 because we're talking about the 10th term. So to find A sub 10, or 10th term, we're going to take 3 times -5 to the 10 minus 1 power. 10 minus 1 is 9. Now we're going to take -5 to the 9th power and multiply that by 3. And we get -5,859,375. That's how we find a specified term given the explicit formula. Finding the initial term, common ratio, or term. Plug the given information into your explicit formula for geometric sequences. You should only have one unknown after plugging in this given information. And then solve for that unknown, whether it be your first term, your r, or your position of your term. Let's look at an example. Let's find r if A sub 6 is 0.2 and A sub 1 is 625. Okay, so let's start off with our explicit formula first. We got A sub n equals a sub 1 times r to the n minus 1 power. Okay, so we're going to plug in a sub 6 here for a sub n, which is 0.2, equals, our a sub 1 is 625, times r, because that's what we're trying to find, that's our unknown, to the n minus 1 power. N is 6, so we're going to take 6 minus 1. Let's just go ahead and put 5 there. Skip a step. I think we're smart enough we can understand that. So now it's an equation. So 625 is multiplying r. So we need to divide by 625 on both sides. Point 2 divided by 625 is 0.00032, which equals r to the 5th power. Now, to get rid of that power of 5, we have to take what we call the 5th root. And we just put a little 5 out in front here on both sides. Kind of like a square root bar, but with a 5 out in front instead of a 2. Okay, now we take the 5th root of 0.00032 and we get r to equal 0.2. Finally, let's review our I can statements. I can determine the explicit formula for a geometric sequence. You should be able to do that now. And I can use the explicit formula to find missing data. Just plug in what you know and solve for the one unknown that you have. And again, this is going to lead into arithmetic and geometric series, which we're going to talk about on the next lesson. Thank you guys, and you guys have a good night.